That's the Jellybricks and their new album Dreaming in Stereo, just out on Wicked Cool Records.
I was dreaming in stereo.
We spoke to band leader Larry Kennedy about making power pop music in central Pennsylvania that's so fine that little Steven just had to sign them to his label.
Dreaming in stereo.
This is our second record we're putting out on Wicked Cool Records, but I'm still gathering the full impression of how much of a labor of love this is for Steven Van Zandt, how
Right.
much this is like a cultural preservation concept to him. You know,
Right.
He doesn't appear to be overly motivated by money with any of what he's doing with his
Well,
label.
let's hope he made enough with Bruce that he didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly appreciate, we couldn't be more happy to be benefiting from his interest in preserving rock and roll bands.
There you go. And isn't there some kind of little Steven thing out on the boat somewhere in a couple of months that's happening?
Yes, we were told next time because we saw that was coming together and we were thinking, would we like to be trapped on a boat for a week with a bunch of these musical luminaries that we admire so much? Yes, please. But we're a little too low on the totem pole to get the invite for this one.
Oh well, I'm sure it'll happen eventually.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I understand this is the maiden voyage of this particular cruise concept, so I'm sure they were wanting to make sure they would sell tickets, and the
Yep, yep.
Jellybricks just aren't the household word that some of these other artists are.
Oh well. And before we talk about your record, another thing I saw there's a Central Pennsylvania Music Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And so I looked at their website and I was like, I wonder who's in that. And I was curious. You remember a band called The Boys?
Funny, I don't have a personal memory of them, but I remember
You're
being
too
a
young.
teenager and I had a friend who really had an appreciation for, we'll say, novelty songs.
Yep.
And he actually told me the entire tale of the Timothy song,
Yep.
and it stuck in my head because it was such a bizarre story he told me, and I have a vague familiarity with Rupert Holmes, the guy
Yep.
who wrote
It's a pina
that
colada
song.
guy. But he
Yeah, so
wrote that song, yeah.
well, yeah, and I mean, kind of a jack of all trades. The guy wrote a successful musical and a successful stage play. I mean, Rupert Holmes was a is an interesting individual. I don't know if he's still around, to be
I think he
honest.
is.
Sorry, Rupert, if you're watching.
Yeah, yeah. But
But
yeah.
but I had no idea the boys were from, or buoys were from Pennsylvania until they got inducted into the
I
Hall
didn't
of
know
Fame.
that either until I saw that because I mentioned them. I was doing an interview with somebody a couple of days, maybe last week, and they had a song about cannibalism, and they were kind of being, oh, I'll bet that's the first song anybody's written about cannibalism, and I was like, no, I got to call you on that. Have you heard Timothy by the Boys? And they're going to go check it out.
Well, I love the fact that it was a deliberate effort to basically be controversial to try
Yeah,
to get the band some attention.
yeah, it
But
worked, and it was a pretty
yeah.
good song. I bought it when it came out. I was just at the right age. I was like 14 or 15 when it came out.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've actually heard the song. I have all this information in my head about it, but
Once
I
you
don't know
hear
if
it, you won't be able to get it out of your head.
so it must be catchy.
Yeah, it is. And then they followed it up with a really good tune called Give Up Your Guns, which was like a minor hit, but it was a really good song. It wasn't a novelty in any way, so they had some substance there as well.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't mind telling you, since you were looking around at the website, that we have actually been honored with being placed on the ballot for the
Oh, that's
Hall of
cool.
Fame. We
Nice.
haven't been inducted yet, but
Yep.
Taylor Swift is on there too, so she may well get in
She
before
might
we.
get in. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Does Pittsburgh count as central Pennsylvania?
I I don't know because well, I don't know the minds of the people that put this together, but I wouldn't put it past them to eventually, if there's no such thing as a Hall of Fame in Pittsburgh, I wouldn't put it past them to expand until they take the whole state on. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that'll be interesting to see. All righty. Well, let's get down to the Jellybricks.
Sure.
Your new album is coming out, well, like tomorrow here. It's this because it's the sixth here already. So, what do you got planned for the day? Anything exciting?
We're going to do our first in store in a record store since before the pandemic,
Oh, that'll
actually.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a pretty good playing schedule last year. We played more than we had in quite a while. I mean, the pandemic slowed everybody down in that regard, but we've been kind of slowly inching our way back into it. Um, But when it came to putting the record out, we've put together events in the past around releases with varying results, and we just thought, let's just pick a great local independent record store and go there and play some songs for people.
Right.
And they were very receptive. So that's what
Sure.
we're doing. A local place called Recordsmith is going to host us.
Excellent.
They have a devoted crowd of people who come there for live music as well as vinyl records. So,
Nice,
yeah.
nice, nice. And the record's called Dreaming in Stereo. So, like you said, this is your second album on Wicked Cool. When did it start taking shape for you and the band?
Well, not to give you the whole history of the band, unless that's what you really meant. I think you meant the relationship with Wicked Cool, right?
Well, yeah, because I know
Okay.
you guys have been around for
So,
a while, especially you
yeah.
started the band like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, well, technically, if you can believe it, we're at year 29
Oh
now.
my God.
Yeah, we're the thing that hasn't left.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I would say around 2004, I think our record Power This was around the time that I remember first becoming aware of Little Steven's Underground Garage,
Yep.
his syndicated radio show, and then he has the satellite radio channel. I don't know if you guys get that in New Zealand,
I don't know. I'm kind of
but
horned in on all, everybody has their own set of things that they're into.
I know what you mean. Yeah, you can be big in very small place and nobody else will know about you
Yeah.
kind of thing too. But I heard what he was playing on the radio and I was like, wow, this is like the radio format that I always dreamed a radio station would have, where you acknowledge music from the inception of rock and roll to the present.
Yeah.
And then you try to make sense of how it all relates, to itself. And anyway, I was hearing bands that were what I regarded as some of our peers, just some really great independent bands that we were playing with in festival locations. I don't know if you'll know any of these names, but there's a band out of the Washington, D.C., Norfolk, Virginia area called the Mockers.
There's also a
Band.
Mockers in New Zealand, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a band from Texas called Cotton Mather that I'm
I've
remembering.
heard of them. Yep.
And a band from Nashville, Tennessee called the Shazam was another
I
band.
don't know them.
Well, we played with a variety of, it was primarily there was a power pop thing going on in the 90s where we were meeting a lot of these bands, and I was
Right.
hearing them on Little Steven's channel
Yeah.
and thinking, well, if he's playing these guys, then he might play us.
Yep.
So I don't mind admitting we actually had two records rejected before we got on the air.
Nice.
I was, disheartened when we didn't get on, but when we finally did, we went directly from having no airplay on his station to getting a coolest song in the world. And that
Nice.
was on our EP Suckers, which came out in 2012, the song Rock and Roll Suicide, where I unwittingly stole a song title from David
I was
Bowie.
gonna
I
say, hang on.
can't claim that. Yeah, it's not, and I can't even claim to have never heard the song before, but I
I hope
did
not.
synapse moment. But I was actually doing an interview and somebody asked me, what were you thinking when you stole the Bowie title? And I was like, did I do that?
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
yeah,
Next, I thought, I wonder if I stole the tune too, but
yeah.
luckily, it's not the
Fortunately,
same.
yeah.
But nevertheless, that song, we not only, he names a song per week, the coolest song in the world for the week.
Right.
Huge honor. We got a lot of attention for it. And then at the end of the year, they had a voting thing
All
for
right.
the listeners.
Yep.
And we managed to beat, good heavens, I shudder to say this, but we were in a contest with Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney that year
Crikey.
and managed to take the top spot.
Yeah.
Fan voting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that left an impression, I think, with Little Steven, and I think he started to consider us
Oh,
for
nice. Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Um, I can't say exactly what made them eventually topple over, but I think we put one more record out and had another coolest song
Well, that'll
with,
work.
and I think they just started to recognize that maybe we were their cup of tea, and
Yeah.
we couldn't be more happy that they
Yeah.
took an
Very good.
interest in
And you
us.
mentioned power pop. I'm wondering if how familiar you are with the power pop scene from like the late 70s, early 80s, with bands like the Nerves and the Plimsouls and 2020 and those and Pez Band and things like that.
Well, I'm like a retroactive learner on that front because I started out as a pretty young kid. I was a Beatles obsessive,
As
which
you
is
should
really
be.
where the roots of my musical everything starts.
Yep.
But Jellybricks were already making records before I even heard the term power pop.
Gotcha.
Started saying we were a power pop band. And then I noticed people started arguing about whether we were or were not a power pop band. And that's actually why our third record was called Power This,
Right,
because
right. Gotcha. What
we
do you,
were like,
yeah,
what's the difference? You like it or you don't. But I understand people are very, they have opinions about these things.
yeah.
But to answer your question properly, I've been kind of learning about those bands retroactively. And I mean, I've seen where people will compare us to a band and then I'll think, well, I should check them out. I remember somebody comparing us to the Records.
Right. Oh, the records
I'd
were definitely
never heard.
Starry Eye is a great song. And then if you want to
Yeah.
keep going back, you go to the Raspberries and Badfinger, and then supposedly like the holy grail of power pop is the Who's I Can See for Miles.
Yeah, well, and the Raspberries, because I come from Youngstown,
Well,
Ohio,
there you go.
I did have a regional music fascination. So I was an admirer of the Raspberries. I still didn't know the term power pop, even though because they played the Raspberries on regular commercial
Sure.
radio where I
Yep,
grew
yep.
up.
They had big hits.
Um, I'm actually friends with a man named Frank Sesich, who was in the band Blue Ash, if
Oh
you're
yeah.
familiar
I
with
think I
them.
have some of their albums back here.
Okay, yeah, and
I'm sure I do.
he's from right where I'm from, and I remember looking at records that he was on in my local record store without knowing that he lived there.
Yep,
It's like
yep, yep, yep.
similarly with he played with he worked in with Stiv Bators in his solo
Oh yeah.
years.
Yep.
And I also remember looking at Dead Boys records and not having any understanding Stiv Bators was from the same town as me, as a
That's
matter
right.
of fact.
They're from Ohio, along with
Yeah.
Per Ubu. Do you ever listen to them?
Yes, actually, I have a friend who's a bit of a Perubu obsessive,
They're pretty
so
cool.
I have that fascination too with particularly Northeast Ohio, Rocket from the Tombs,
Yeah.
Peru, the Dead Boys.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's funny, power pop was kind of all around me without me knowing it, without really, and it's like later I'm like, oh wait, okay, so these are kind of our people,
Yep. Yep.
And we have been embraced by the power pop audience, which I certainly appreciate it. I love the Raspberries. I mean, that's
Yep.
all of the bands that you're speaking of, actually,
Yep.
I really love.
Cool. Cool. Excellent. All right. So let's get into Dreaming in Stereo. It opens
Mhm.
with a song called Age of Stupid, which seems rather prescient these days. What were you thinking?
Welcome to the age of stupid. Stupid. Welcome to the age of stupid. I know a thing or two about a couple things. I gotta tell you all about a couple things I kinda know about. All of these thoughts I got them from a dude who knows. I got them from a place that you would never be so smart to go.
Well, it does seem prescient. I guess I would say, I mean, the reality of it is that I had been arguing with somebody about conspiracy theories to the point of exhaustion.
Right.
And I was taking a walk one day and just mulling over the frustration of these arguments. And the thought occurred to me that you wouldn't call the times we were living in the age of enlightenment. And the
No.
very next thought was,
All right.
call it the age of stupid. And as soon as I thought that, the chorus appeared in my
There you
head. I'm
go.
like,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
song. So then the lyrics of the song really, I just thought, well, this is what's got me all fired up. So the lyrics are mostly populated with things that are right from my conversations with people.
Hmm.
Um, it's mostly the sensation of being told you don't know what's really going on. And then if you stay there for an hour, you won't learn a thing from that
No,
person.
no, no. And you're not, and the other thing is you're not going to change their mind or
Oh,
even educate them in any way because they already know everything.
yeah. And that's it. I didn't think of this before, but really it's kind of a song about people
Yeah.
not listening to each other and just talking.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of this in those
Yeah. Yeah.
lyrics.
Do you spend much time on social media?
Too much
Yeah.
because primarily because that's the easiest, most effective way to promote the band.
Yep.
And, I'm actually one of those guys who, if I didn't have to have a cell phone, I probably wouldn't, because I like to keep things simple. So I love the advantages of technology, but I don't, there's a lot of times when I'm in my phone and feeling the crane in my neck and
Yeah, yeah.
thinking, why am I not doing something more interesting than this? But we all know it's addictive.
Yep, yep, yep.
It's where the action is, you
That's
know?
right. Yeah, it is indeed. There's all sorts, but I find with the social media, it's as horrible or as beneficial as you choose to make it. Because I have friends who are always getting into big arguments with blah blah blah, and and I'm like, "Well, it never happens to me. I don't understand what the problem
Yeah, I'm not a big keyboard warrior type.
is." Some people can't help
And
it.
and honestly, a song like Age of Stupid does have a little bit of my take on that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I,
I'm not really calling anyone in particular stupid, but it's
hey,
more or less,
if the shoe fits.
you got it. I like a song like that. I'm like, if you think you hear yourself in this, maybe you are in this, but I
Yeah.
don't probably knew you, you know?
Now you also have a song called Mondays Never, which when I started listening to the lyrics, I'm thinking, oh, this has kind of got a Friday on My Mind vibe going. Do you know that song by the Easy Beats?
I love the Easy
They're from
Beats. They're
Australia, just around the
Australia,
corner.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They're
Um,
yeah.
oh, go ahead. No, I
Well,
don't.
one of the brothers was the older brother of the guys who formed AC/DC, Malcolm and Angus Young. Their
Okay,
older brother,
right.
George Young, was the
I'm
main guy.
happy to say I learned about them from a Youngstown band called the Infidels, who did a brilliant cover of Sorry in their
Oh, great.
live show.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with their version, and that led me to the Easy Beats. But it's funny. While I did remember that they are from Australia, I am actually visiting you wearing my Finn Brothers
Oh,
t-shirt.
nice one.
Yeah, because I do know what part of the world you're sitting in, and honest to goodness, nobody asks me this ever, but after Lennon McCartney, the Finns are probably my favorite songwriters on
Well,
the planet.
I think you're onto something there. I just watched, there was a Crowded House concert here a little while ago. And
Hmm.
I mean, I've been following them for years. I know, but I was just, the last 9, 10 songs of the show, everyone was a stone cold classic. It was like, there's no better song written than this. And then there's another one. And to be honest, I can see pretty much Neil Finn's Roundhead studio from here, where I'm at right now.
That's so
He
cool.
lives right around the corner, works around the corner. So,
That's wonderful. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I had forgotten when I spoke to you the other day, but I wanted to let you know that at least within the Jellybricks, there's a deep appreciation for all things Finn. Split Ends, Crowded
Yep.
House,
No, no.
Nell Fenter, all
Amazing
that.
songs. Great stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you seen Crowded House?
I have.
Oh, good.
I've actually had the pleasure of meeting both of those gentlemen at gosh, various gigs over the years, to be
Yeah.
honest. I,
Yep.
I think
Yep.
the first time I saw Crowded House was on the Woodface tour
Nice.
in Cleveland, Ohio, and but I didn't get to meet anybody then. But
Right.
over the long haul, I've gotten to meet both Neil and Tim and Nick Seymour and Mark Hart when he was still in the band.
Right.
Um, nice people,
Yep.
really
And now
nice
Mitchell
people.
Froome he produced their early stuff. Now he's a member of the band as well. So it makes it even better.
I will share that I got to shake Neil Finn's hand and I did that thing in my head of please, please, please just give me a little bit of whatever it is you've
See if
got.
something rubs off. Well, it
Yep.
sounds like it might have. That's good. Yeah. It's sounding good. Do you have a favorite on the album?
Oh, wow. Well, for me, well, I guess before I answer that, I should say about Mondays Never.
Monday's never good for me. Tuesday needs to go away. Wednesday starts to feel okay. Monday's never good for me. Woke up in the gutter with a freight train in my head. Taxied for an hour just to land.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
written by our other guitar player, Bryce.
Okay.
And I don't know if he might have been thinking more like putting a twist on Friday I'm in Love by The
The
Cure.
Cure. Sure. So there's always that.
But we both know and love Friday on My Mind too. So I just I just think he stumbled onto something that was working for him.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
as far as my favorite song on the record, I think it generally usually tends to be one of my own because we there are multiple
That's
songwriters,
fair
but
enough. Yeah, I can't tell whose is whose because I don't have the writing credit, so I'm
well,
flying
and
blind.
so it isn't strictly because I like my own, but it's more that each record kind of represents my opportunity to put my best stuff forward.
Right,
So
sure.
that's where I usually. So my personal favorite is "Follow That Girl,"
I'm
and
glad you wrote said that because that was mine as well.
I don't know why you wait for me. You wait for someone who knows the way to go. I follow that girl. I'm not sure I know what I know. I follow that girl. I follow you around the world. I follow that girl. I follow that girl.
I don't expect that to be one that will get a ton of mention from people because it's a little left of center or something, but that's part of what I enjoy about it.
Yep.
Um,
Any backstory to the song?
well, it's a combination of a couple of different things, but there's got the lyric in there about if you're thinking that anyone is a know-it-all, disappointment is standing by just to break your fall. And there is a bit of reactionary stuff going on there too, to this world full of people telling you how everything is all the time.
Yep.
Um, so without naming names, I would just say that I've seen some admirable people out there, and I was thinking of them when I said, what are you asking me for? I'm following her.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
sort of what I was going for. But I was playing with it a little bit so that you could interpret that song, you
Yep.
know, in
Yeah.
an individual way.
Very nice. Very nice. And I see, when we were talking about the weather at the beginning of our conversation, I missed the opportunity to mention crazy weather because you mentioned Pennsylvania in the tune.
Yeah.
So,
The sun comes up over Pennsylvania. Got all this stuff swirling in your brain. You watch the sun go down. You feel a change coming back to normal, back to strange. And you feel so good like you can't remember a cold September ago forever. Now it's summer, late December. Don't know why, but let's enjoy this crazy weather.
Well, I can give you one backstory thing about that, which I remember very distinctly, which was we had now, whereas I believe, if I'm not mistaken, December is summer where you live. Is
it
that
is
right?
indeed, even February, which is right now.
So, and I only know that because of being, curious about bands from that part of the world, but
Yep.
we had a December here that was like summer.
Right.
And, we'll call it one of the days when people fought with each other over whether climate change is real or not. And and nevertheless, I it became inspiration in part for that song with the bit about, now it's summer in late December.
Yep.
And I knew when I was writing that if you're down under, this doesn't seem like a curiosity, but it does in Pennsylvania.
Definitely would be in Pennsylvania. Yeah. No, no, you got to write for what you know. Can't
Right,
worry about how
right.
everybody else is going to take
So I
it.
guess maybe that's why Pennsylvania actually got name checked in there so that you could check your
Yep. Yep.
geography and
You know where it's coming
realize
from.
it should be
Very good.
cold.
Yep. Yep. And you released "Devil's a Day Away" as the kind of lead off single to be a teaser for the record. Why did you choose that record or that song?
Devil's just a day away from where you are, flying through the red lights in a stolen car. Put your pedal to the metal, your time is running out. So much for the time we all pretend we're not alone, and all my friends are so strung out. So I'll be leaving home.
Well, now that song was written by our drummer Tom,
Okay.
and well, as far as the choice of singles, to be honest, that all emanates from Steven Van Zandt and Wicked Cool Records.
Okay.
They generally choose what they consider to be the strongest cuts that they want to
Sure.
their weight behind. And we were fortunate they like enough of our material to put out a few singles from our records.
Yeah.
Uh, but Devil's a Day Away, which I just enjoy the different wrinkles that we get from the different writers in the band because we do each kind of have our own little ways of approaching things. But then when the band gets its hands on the songs, they ultimately kind of wind up sounding like the Jellybricks.
Right.
But Devil's a Day Away, I know, is another song that is somewhat born out of the pandemic period about, maybe a little bit of that feeling of you might have everything as secure as you want it, but that doesn't necessarily mean you won't be visited with something you weren't expecting that might be really tough, you know?
Yep. Very cool. All
But
right.
I like the song. There's some really great imagery in there that Tom came up with. I'm a big fan of the concept of somebody flying through the red lights in a stolen car.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about everybody in the band except for Garrick, I think, the bass player.
Yes.
What do we need to say about him? We don't want to leave him out.
Well, it's funny. Garrick is also a singer and a songwriter, but he is so good at visual design for our band that he tends to make that his priority. He's the guy who's responsible for our album cover artwork,
Right?
and most of our videos are Garrick's brainchild. I mean, different guys in the band do come up with ideas for things, but Garrick is the one who usually executes
Gotcha.
and just kind of kills it every time for us. We just love how good he is at it. But
All
he's
right.
also a pretty great bass player. It's just that his motivation is more in the visual arts than in the
A
studio.
utility player.
Yeah. Well, we have everybody's pretty opinionated in the band.
Right?
And oh my gosh, I'm sure you're a Spinal Tap familiar.
Of course.
Derek really does have the Derek Smalls lukewarm water persona
Nice.
while mixing with our other elements. He's like the grounding
Right, right, right.
force in the band. And not
Right.
that he can't be immature, but if there's no other adult left in the room, Garrett can play the role.
Excellent. So with all of you writing and singing and stuff, how does that decision making go within the band when you're in the studio? Is that why you have a producer working with you?
Well, the producer really does help because we're all pretty nice to each other. I mean, it's something that we work at,
Yeah.
because we get on each other's nerves like siblings, especially at the 29-year mark.
Yeah.
Um, Bryce and Garrick have known each other since they were 5 years old.
Oy.
And they've played in multiple bands together prior to the Jellybricks, so they have a very long-term relationship. Tom, the drummer, and I lived in an apartment together for about 10 years. But overall, when it comes to decision making, we're really good at looking out for each other's feelings and trying not to tick each other off so that we can continue to be a productive, happy lot.
Yep.
But that's where bringing a producer in can be really helpful because, like in the case of Jeff Sanoff, who worked with us on this, he literally got to a comfort level where he can tell us to shut up
Yep.
and listen and tell us what he thinks. And he threw some challenges at us, like I like what you're doing with this song, but it sounds like something you guys have done a million times. What if we turn it on its head and try it like this?
Yep. Yep.
Fortunately for us, we actually are open-minded about collaboration like that, you
Nice.
know?
Yep. All right. Sounds like
So
a
I'm
plan.
happy to say this album, it's like I think the Jellybricks could always make a competent collection of songs because we like to make music together.
Yep.
But you bring a producer in who really cares about the work and he can really help to focus us to make something a little better than that.
Excellent. Sounds good. All right. Well, it sounds like you're all raring to go for a Friday release. I got one more question for you before we go.
Mhm.
How do you are you planning on taking your Christmas tree down on Easter or 4th of July?
I love that question. Okay, I when I was thinking about doing this Zoom call, one of the things I thought was, do I want to make that Christmas tree go away before I go on camera? And the only choice I did make was not to turn the lights back on
Fair
because
enough.
they wouldn't be so distracted by the Christmassy part. No, but you know what? I did plan to leave it up for all of January. I don't mind, but when you have a new record coming out the first week of February, suddenly you're too busy to
There's
deal with
stuff,
it.
other priorities. That's fair enough. Yep.
So that's all it is.
I
It'll
love
probably
it.
come down after our record comes out on Friday.
Yep. All right. Very good. That'll give you something to do. Like you need it.
Yeah.
And you got a tour and all that? Are you doing gigs?
We're booking gigs. We have some interest in some offers for a variety of things,
All
but
right.
we don't really have any, like, we don't have any plans to do any major touring. We're not in a position to do that. We are basically day job guys who do as
Yep.
many trips away from work as we can muster, but
Right.
we hope to get back out to the West Coast eventually. We've done that in the past, and we've never been out of the country as a band, and that's something
Ah,
that we'd love to do too. But
yeah, there you go.
we'll
Okay.
see how
Well,
it goes.
you never know. You might even make it down this way someday.
Would love to.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.